We have described the principles of operant conditioning with the pigeon. We will now extend these principles to other animals, both inside and outside of the laboratory. Most of the early work in behavior theory used the white rat as a subject, and so does much that is being done today. This is a modern version of the apparatus that Skinner introduced in the 30s when he published The Behavior of Organisms. The box is small, which increases the probability that the rat will approach and perhaps touch the lever, and decreases the probability of incompatible behavior. When the lever is depressed, the light comes on and a pellet of food is delivered to the food cup. Lever pressing is defined electromechanically, and the light shows when the lever is pressed far enough to operate a microswitch and qualify as a response. This is a final performance of a rat already trained to press the lever. Each response is reinforced, and the rat has established a pattern of pressing with the right paw that involves little wasted effort. Compare his behavior to that of this rat, which has been adapted to this box and magazine trained, but never reinforced for any specific approximation of lever pressing. The rat has been deprived of food for 24 hours and is at approximately 80% ad lib weight. His operant level for pressing the lever is very low. Shaping lever pressing in a rat uses the same principle of successive approximations as shaping pecking in a pigeon. The first approximation reinforced is putting his nose near the lever. The experimenter hopes for a closer approximation, so the next response of sniffing the lever is not reinforced. Touching the light produces the next reinforcement. And the next. The next approximation occurs 2 minutes later. He raises himself on his right foot and lifts his left foot off the floor. There is a lot of activity near the lever, and then the right foot is up and forward. This is reinforced, and so is the response of raising the left foot toward the lever. And then, since the light did not go on, it wasn't defined as a response, but it was a very close approximation. He's not chewing any new pellets, just the old ones. Eventually, he raises his foot again and is reinforced when it touches the lever, even though he doesn't press it. Now, reinforcement only when he rises and touches and presses. This time it's the other foot, and still not hard enough to turn on the light. Another partial press, and now the light comes on. So this is the first definable response. Now, every press is sufficient to turn on the light. Most grown dogs have a high operant level for jumping over natural barriers, such as stone walls. But this does not mean that the response will occur on command in an artificial situation. This dog has already been trained to heel and to stay and to come when he is called. We will use these responses in shaping the high jump. First, we bring the dog's behavior under control with the leash. And we use a solid jump to prevent the incompatible behavior of running under the jump. Since the dog has been trained to heel, the handler first goes over the jump with the dog. The dog is still following his handler, but when the handler goes around the outside of the jump, this is an approximation of the dog's jumping alone. The command over precedes the response, and praise follows. The next approximation is a difficult advance because the dog's jumping alone is incompatible with his behavior of staying beside his handler.
Over. Over. Good boy. Good boy, Dora. That's a good dog.
Now to shape another dimension of the final performance. The height is raised, but the handler goes back to the earlier approximation of taking the jump with her dog.
Over. Good boy.
And works up again with the jump at this new height.
Over.
During the shaping, praise is continuous. Praise is the reinforcer used most often in dog training. Of course, food is effective too, but it is often impossible to deliver food immediately following the response.
Over. Over. Good dog. Good dog.
The jump is raised again, and the dog takes it with the handler going around the side.
Over. Good dog. Over.
On the next trial, he balks when sent by himself. So the jump is lowered in order that the earlier approximations do not extinguish. Shaping has proceeded too rapidly. His behavior is disrupted and he balks again, even though he has already jumped this height. Back to an earlier approximation. He takes this jump when the handler goes around the side. In approximately 10 minutes, he is ready for the next to highest jump. He balks the first time, as does the handler. The response of coming to the handler is already in his repertoire, so she leaves him on one side of the jump and calls him over, leading him with the leash. Then a large step forward as she removes the leash.
Over. Good boy. Oh, what a good boy.
The total training time is less than 30 minutes when the handler adds the last board. The jump is now 36 inches high.
Over. Good boy.
The fact that this dog now takes this particular kind of 36-inch jump on command does not mean that he will generalize the jumping response to other obstacles. The training of police dogs requires the differentiation of many different responses in many different stimulus situations before they can clear all of the objects on this obstacle course.
Over. Over. Steady. Steady. Over.
All of these different responses were shaped. For each obstacle, the trainer reinforced successive approximations of the final performance.
Up. Turn. Up.
Conditioning need not take place in a laboratory, and reinforcement need not be scheduled by any human agency. This toy parrot speaks 11 different phrases in random order.
Knock it off, knock it off. Cut it off, knock it off, knock it off.
If the sound of the parrot speaking is a reinforcer, then by definition it can condition the behavior that produces it. This 3-year-old boy is in unfamiliar surroundings, and he is not accustomed to the floodlights and cameras. His father is present so that he will feel more at home, to structure the situation so that some behavior will occur. The father was specifically asked not to reinforce any particular behavior. One of the first responses is twisting the ring. 3- and 4-year-olds have a very high operant level for turning things. Then he manipulates other parts of the parrot. He touches the ring, but doesn't pull it out far enough to produce a sound. Since the reinforcer is the sound itself, the first approximation that can be reinforced is one that actually produces the sound. He touches the ring again. He pulls it part way.
Sailing, sailing. Crackers. Crackers, want for crackers?
This is 2 minutes later.
Knock it off, knock it off.
Actually, a number of responses are being strengthened. He has now learned how to keep the parrot on the perch, and he holds it more efficiently. The parrot is given to another boy who quickly learns to pull the ring.
Crackers, want for crackers? Here, kitty, kitty. Scat.
Now, another response is being strengthened.
Knock it off, knock it off.
The reinforcer is probably tactual.
Here, kitty, kitty. Scat. Oh, there's time to eat. Eat the birdie.
A high and stable rate of response.
Silly bird. I'm your pal. Hi there, I'm Cracker.
The cumulative response records for both boys for the entire period show the reinforcing properties of a talking parrot in shaping and maintaining behavior. The quickest way to shape or strengthen behavior is to reinforce each occurrence of the response. Once the behavior is firmly established, reinforcement can be delivered intermittently rather than following every response. Reinforcement is delivered on a schedule that states the contingencies on which reinforcement depends. In some schedules, called interval schedules, reinforcement is contingent upon the passage of time. Other schedules, called ratio schedules, are contingent upon the number of responses emitted. Still other schedules are variations or combinations of interval and ratio schedules. This Philippine macaque is receiving banana pellets on a variable ratio schedule. The number of responses on which reinforcement depends varies, but on the average, every 100th response is reinforced. Variable ratio reinforcement produces a very high and a very stable rate of response. Human behavior is also maintained in strength on a variable ratio schedule. One of the practical applications of laboratory work in the field of behavior theory is the teaching machine, or programmed instruction. Before we can condition or shape or teach any behavior, we must specify the final performance. This is a frame near the end of this program, which was designed to teach the fundamentals of electricity. The behavior of answering questions such as these is the behavior the program is designed to shape. As with the laboratory animals, we start with behavior that already exists in some strength. These first frames are among the earliest in the program, and a boy ready for the program is able to answer the questions. Programmed instruction introduces into the classroom some of the controls of the laboratory. The requirement of a differential response, such as writing the answer, or even saying the answer to yourself, reduces the likelihood of incompatible behavior, such as daydreaming or doodling or looking out the window. One principle of behavior theory is that reinforcement must be delivered immediately. This, of course, is impossible in the conventional classroom situation. But here the student makes his response and then has only to advance the program to learn at once whether or not his response was correct. Fortunately, being right constitutes a reinforcer for most students. Good programs are constructed so that the student usually is right. As a program progresses, the material appears to be increasingly more difficult to someone who has not worked through the preliminary frames. But for the student who has worked through the whole program, the requisite behavior will be easily available. One of the advantages of programmed instruction is that each student proceeds at his own rate, reaching advanced material as he is ready for it. The slower student is not lost, nor the faster one bored. As for the teacher, he is spared the endless preparation and correction of routine drills, and he can spend his time on his lectures and on special projects. He also has more time to give individual attention to his students. Other kinds of behavior can be programmed. B.F. Skinner has developed a program to teach handwriting that is notable for three things: the immediacy of the differential reinforcement, the way it shapes successive approximations of writing, and the intrinsic reinforcement of the task itself. The program is called Write and See. Dr. Skinner explains why.
The write and see method uses a special chemical process to give the child an immediate report of whether he's made the mark correctly or not. When the child learns to write, he moves his arm and hand, and that leaves a mark. To learn well, he should learn immediately whether that mark is correctly made. And with this method, there's a special ink and a special chemical treatment of the paper. When he makes a correct mark, the pen writes a black line. If he goes off, draws a mark which is not correct, it leaves a light yellow mark. So as he works, as he writes, he gets an immediate report that what he's done is correct. And of course, this is a very important principle in operant conditioning, that you get an immediate reinforcement, a differential reinforcement for the correct response, and you learn very quickly when you've not made a correct response. This material is also programmed in the sense that, first of all, you ask the child just to make a small part of a letter. And when he's done that, then he goes on and makes more of the letter. And as the program proceeds, he makes more and more of it until he's making the whole letter. And of course, at each stage, the ink is telling him whether he's right or not. Ordinarily, some time before the teacher can come by and point out to the child that a mark has not been correctly made. With the write and see method, the color reaction gives the child an immediate report, and therefore effective in shaping his behavior as rapidly and as accurately as possible.
We have been able to show you how this program shapes successive approximations of handwriting, and how the special ink tells the child whether or not he is correct at the very instant he is drawing a letter. What the camera has not shown is the powerful intrinsic reinforcement of the work itself. At the end of the session, the children stayed firmly at their desks. They were separated from their workbooks only when they were given pages to take home.